This is the Zemar Podcast. Elite Benefits of America helps small and mid-sized companies with their health insurance programs. And now, your host, Butch Zemar.
So we're going to talk about 2025 concerns for CFOs, business owners, partners, and what to do about them. Just like most companies that do planning, you undergo an evaluation to make this change that isn't working or improving the results of what's already there. So most of the time, this evaluation is tied to revenue. Revenue is one of the biggest drivers of a company, right? So the reality is that you cannot support the company without the revenue. But revenue is just an end result of everything else that leads to it. It's a scoreboard, if you will. Some companies, that's all they focus on is revenue, sales, revenue and sales, revenue and sales, right? And so if that's the case, you could probably identify weak points in the business that deal with the same issues every single time, every single year. It's like the same thing with the benefits renewal. You handle the renewals the same way every single year. Got the old school broker going involved. How do you make things different? And in some cases, you can't do anything at all, but the conversation needs to be there, and you have to buy into the concept. Most people, most businesses are not perfect. It takes time to get things better, right? And to build a better you, better company, it takes just that time, right? And you can't throw money at it. For instance, you can't buy a hockey playing kid a $450 stick, especially that one with the little slot in it, and expect different results on your 10-year-old. As the saying goes, you can't fix a $10 swing with a $500 bat. Many smaller businesses elephant hunt when they get desperate. And so it creates this big sale mentality that's going to save the world and keep them going, right? And I wonder what the real stats are. And I bet at least 50% get that larger sale just to keep going. I know I could speak from my own experience that, you know, those little sales even keep you going, just keep you moving. And somehow you kind of bridge the gap as you move up. But you never fix the problem to generate more revenue or generate a better process and more efficient. A lot of times when they get desperate, they just keep striking out, right? You just blank every week, every month, and you're trying to figure out where the next revenue piece is coming from, right? And again, the focus in the process was revenue. It was not on the process to try to generate results, repeatable results. About a year ago or so, we interviewed a guy by the name Troy Viola, and he played for a baseball team in the south side of Chicago. I believe it was like a minor league, but he had this pure path to the pros. I'm curious to where he's at now. I know he's not playing for the same Chicago team, but he had this clear path, and he had a plan to get there. And that was his motivation, right? He was focused on the process. He knew what he was going to do. He knew what steps he was going to take, right? When we were done recording, though, we were chatting, sitting around, just talking about other things. And one of the things that we talked about is doing things every single day. Every single day, he emphasized. He repeated it over and over. He tried to translate it to hockey because that's what my boys do, although he never played hockey. So he talked about shooting, stick handling, skating every single day. In baseball, you have to work on your offense, your defense, your strength, right? And you have to get better at things and do those little things every single day. It's too bad we weren't recorded at that time, because one of the biggest takeaways I got from that is you have to figure out what makes you successful, and you have to work at it every single day. And that's every day, right? In January every year, everybody gets ambitious and gets that gym membership, thinking that they're going to make a positive change. And just by making this move, it's a positive change. But by March, the ambition disappears and it slows down. And now it's inconvenient to keep going to the gym or do that workout. But then you got some of those gym rats that hang out at the gym for 3-4 hours. And eventually that dies. Or if it even keeps going, they never achieve the results they potentially can. And so in sales, you cannot just cold call for 5 hours a day, every single day. Eventually, it will dry up, or you will lose the motivation to keep calling, mainly because it takes 100 calls to get one appointment, or some ratio of that nature. So that means you have to make 1,000 phone calls just to get 10 appointments. And out of 10 appointments, you if you're lucky, you might get one account sold. So don't get me wrong, it is a strategy, especially when you have time, you're new in the business, you need to build a pipeline. it's a strategy, right? It's just a tool mechanism to generate sales, right? So it is a strategy, but you need to work it if you do, and you have to break things up and do things a little bit different every now and then to keep your interest going, and obviously try different outcomes. Because if you keep repeating the same process over and over again, you're not going to change results. It's obviously the definition of insanity if you think things are going to change. In some cases, it would, but again, you have to build on the strategy, build on the process, and your results will change if you keep focusing on that piece of it. If your focus is just on the end result, you're not going to get any change in that without changing the process. We could probably get into a sales aspect in a different podcast, but just to highlight some examples in this, or for this example, we could break it up, right? 2 to 3 hours a day, you could cold call, but instead of 5 hours, but you could make a more targeted list based on who you want to call. Certain numbers, you already have that put together, it's ready to go, right? So it's kind of like Abraham Lincoln that said if I had 6 hours, or whatever it was, 6 hours to cut down a tree, he would spend 4 of it sharpening his axe. It's the same thing here. Figure out where your target is and focus on that instead of calling a big, huge cold list and expecting certain results. So that's a strategy. The other thing is figure out other ways to keep filling those strategies with warmer leads, right? So you got online lead generations, in-person networking, shaking hands, and you could always tap into your current client base because they purchased you from one. At one point in time, you might be able to add another sale, concrete more relationships out of that, but also make it new introductions. There's tools out there you could actually leverage your current contacts and figure out who they know, like through LinkedIn, who they're connected with, and see if you can get introductions on there. There are other ways to create more warm leads. What I'm just saying is that it's based on the process, the strategy, how you're implementing it, how you keep improving it, but you got to work at it every single day. And so it's the same thing with business planning and even benefit strategy. I even know some small businesses out there that they try to put in more time thinking that they're going to solve this issue. So a lot of solopreneurs will do this. Some other small companies, even as many as 100 employees, they feel like if they just keep driving the stake in the ground all by themselves and keep pushing the envelope by themselves and spending more time skipping family events, skipping dinners, skipping lunches, whatever it might be, and they think that more time is going to reap more results. And it doesn't. You know, it's almost like the same thing as saying, well, I'm going to spend 50 hours in a gym. Eventually, your muscles are going to get tired. You're going to get dehydrated. You're working the muscles in the wrong sequence. You're not feeding the right foods. The list goes on, right? You just can't work even the same muscle. So if you work the same muscle over and over too many times, it's not going to reap more results. The same thing in business. If you keep trying to do the same thing and just extend the amount of time you're doing it, it's not always going to work. Most of the time it won't. You get exhausted. But at the same time, businesses attack the benefits renewal the same exact way. Over and over, they try to even spend time focusing on the wrong thing. One example of the wrong thing on a benefits renewal is focusing on that fixed number of the increase, right? That's why these brokers tout themselves and they go to the insurance company, pulls the renewals, and let's say you get a 12% increase. They go back to their client and said, hey, I'm just going to work on my relationships with the carrier. Let me see what I can do. Let's say they shave off 3 points, so they move it under 10%, and now they're the hero, right? I lowered it, and I'm the god, right? And so, it's the same process every year, right? So you're focused on a fixed dollar amount. You're not focused on the little mechanisms internally that are driving that number anyways. I think it's an unethical business that the insurance companies even do this. They're just going to throw a number out there, and if they take the renewal, they take the renewal. If they come back and ask for points to be shaved off, they're like, oh, yeah. We can. It's like poker, right? Like, I think it's just dumb. But that's just the way the industry works, right? And the same renewal process goes over and over the same exact way. And that's the only strategy the broker really has. Maybe some deductible adjustments, move people to HSAs to save a few bucks, maybe do an HRA and try to drive some of that premium down. But you never don't change the process. You're trying to change the end result, and that's the focus. The same thing on sales revenues. If you don't change the results, you don't change the process, how you're doing it, the automation behind it. You're going to end up right back where you started. At some point, your revenue may be higher, but now you're still fighting tooth and nail to keep it there. It all starts with concepts. These concepts turn into processes. Processes turn into results. Results turn into profits. Things are moving faster, so you need to keep up. So listen in on some of these things that I want to mention. Reference CFO.com had several talking points when it comes to CFOs heading into 2025. I'm going to outline some of them here and translate it to benefits in business, and it may help you with some of this planning session going into 2025. Nearly 2/3 of the CFOs that were surveyed in this, that they were using some type of version of AI, but 71% of those who surveyed were concerned about the ROI on the tool. This is a huge topic, and I'm not really going to dive into the AI portion of it. It's about leveraging technology, right? And so AI is just a piece, it's a tool, right? The tool is like a handyman with their tool bag, right? And you have to use the right one when you need it, okay? But not use the right tool for other jobs. So like you wouldn't use a hammer when you need a screwdriver. There's obviously tools to be put in place and strategized. That obviously ROI is a sticking point on much of that, because there is a time when people start investing into technology that the ROI isn't there right away. So you have to be patient. You have to work a process. You have to keep fine tuning the process. Focuses on the process, not always the outcome. Again, you have goals for the outcome, but if that's the 100% the main focus and you don't focus on what's driving that, it's going to create some problems. So in the benefits world, it could be benefits administration, right? HR and business owners, even CFOs that want a platform to actually leverage the onboarding process, technology, linking with payroll, right? And not having to deal with the nuances of changing addresses for the employees. All that needs to be done by the employee, right? So using technology helps out. But then a lot of businesses, clients are, as we provide tools for them, and some of them, they're actually financially paying for them, and then they don't ever use it. And then all of a sudden, we're scrambling on our side and the employer side trying to fix things because they didn't do it right the first time. It creates a lot of aggravation, it creates a lot of stress, and it's not working the output. It's the same thing when sales dip or you're trying to push envelopes and you don't have the process in place and you're not working on things. And when you need the data to come out of the system and you're not putting the data in there, you're not going to get data out. It's garbage in, garbage out. So if you want good data, you got to do it right. You got to build a process. And probably once you build the process, it's probably more efficient and easier to deal with than doing it the old-fashioned way, which is scrambling and chicken scratch on paper and napkins and trying to get things done. Another example, especially in today's modern world. So years ago, you would take notes from your meeting, right? The client, prospect, internal meetings, right? And I'm sure back in the day, you would have this assistant and ask them to take your notes and clean them up and write them on a memo and then send it out. Internally, it may be just memos dropped off in mailboxes, but somebody actually had to physically go do it. You may have to drop the memo in the mail, whether it's to another department or to clients or prospects saying, hey, this is a summary of our meeting. And the world moved a lot slower back then. So if you fast forward to today, or just more modern times, so before today, you would type up the notes and you would email on them, right? So now you're doing it, not an assistant, because it's faster, more efficient to just take Cliff Notes and then type it up and send it in an email. It's coming from you. It's an easier process. You don't have to drop it in the mail. You don't have to fax it to anybody. You just do it, right? So today, a lot of people are taking AI note takers during, especially web meetings, right? And I'm sure it will convert to in-person meetings at some point if it's not there already. Especially with the world of Zoom since COVID, a lot of meetings, even us internally, we have a lot of meetings that are via Zoom or Teams. And these AI note takers pick up like who's talking, and sometimes it'll identify actually by name and figure out who they are. And they would address it and even follow-up notes. So it picks up, like you say, okay, Butch is responsible for this, this, and this, and the person on the call is responsible for providing more information, the census, whatever it might be. It'll outline all that in there. And so you'll be able to just copy and paste those notes easier. You could actually automatically share it with those who are on the call. That's a real cool feature that they automatically get their own email. But benefit administration is no different, though, right? So one day you'll be forced to actually use these technology, and just like the AI note taker, at some point it's already being built in. I think Zoom just released platform. If you're at a certain level or higher, it's automatically built in. And so your note taker is automatically there. And there's so many other ones that do it as well. But then it brings to a lot of concerns about security. It definitely remains a top concern, even for CFOs, owners, partners. Again, it's about creating the process to protect that data. And just for an example, an benefit administration system could help with that security, right? You're not asking for paperwork that has birthdays and socials and addresses, and people could hack that data. It's built into a online system that's secure. Most of them hold certificates of securability or encryption. I'm not 100% familiar with what is needed there, but I just know that there's certificates that I know we have access to on our admin system. No one's ever requested it. I just know when we signed up, and then periodically we'll receive an email that says that we still have access to this. We can provide to clients if they need a comfort zone. And so you're basically outsourcing that risk, and you're not dealing with somebody's birthday and social security number that's listed sitting on your desk, and for other employees to come in and take a look and snoop on what's going on your desk. But using these technology pieces helps create some form of automation. This will create a process for the business for better outcomes, right? Again, the world is getting faster, right? If you're not with it, you're going to slow down. If you're not making progress, you're moving backwards. So leveraging the technology, whether it's in sales or if it's related to benefit administration or something inside the company, again, your sales are going to go up, your profits are going to go up, depending on what leverage you're actually pulling, right? Revenue is just a scoreboard. It depends on how you're leveraging it. In a benefits platform, the automation is built in so that HR is not tied up, again, with address changes or employment changes, terminations, onboarding, whatever it might be. They're tied up with more efficient tasks, so which produces better outcomes for the employee. But it's about the process. It's not necessarily always about the end result. That's a goal. That's a target you're heading to. It's like on a map. A GPS is where you head in there. But it's the process to get you there that's the most important. We don't pull up GPSs to exactly. I mean, sometimes we're doing it to see the end location, but that's the target, right? You have to figure out how to get there, right? That's the process, right? Do you want to go one way and there's a whole bunch of traffic and you see all those red lines on the GPS? Or you're going to go another way where it's a little bit greener or, lighter traffic. Again, it's all in the process to get you there, how efficient you're going to be able to get there, time to get there, especially when the speed of the game's going faster. So making changes now in the fourth quarter is going to be important for 2025 to be ready to go with technology, automation, to get the results you're looking for in terms of growth, revenue, and profits. As a business owner, partner, CFO, HR professional, or even brokers that are even listening to this podcast, you have to make those steps to get through a process to make things better. You can't just wing it and throw spaghetti at the wall. Even though I do that a lot, it's still a process, right? And having that process makes things a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient, a little bit everything. And then you're not scrambling at the last minute. So a lot of brokers out there, and I'm just speaking to masses, it may not be you if you're listening to this, but a lot of brokers scramble at the last second. They run out of time, and then there's so much pressure and there's so much anxiety. And then when you're behind on those accounts, so let's say we just passed October 1st, and October 1st, there's still people working on October 1st. For whatever reason. November 1st is should have been already done as well. December 1st should be wrapping up, and we're already looking at January 1st. A lot of brokers out there don't look at any of it until 30 to 6 days out, and a lot of times it's longer than that, meaning shorter. So it's under 30 days. So employers don't really have a decision, and some of them will do it as a strategy to tell you to basically eat the increase because you ran out of time because it wasn't on your timeline or your process to do the renewal. It should be an internal process and timelines on your own side to make sure that you could strategize. It's the same thing you would do for any project internally. You got to build milestone marks and what your goals are for each one of those and keep the ball moving. You definitely have to evaluate where that investment's going. And the first thing to do is actually see where you're at today, where you're headed and what kind of process you're going to be in and where you look at for the growth and where you're going to see in 2025, 2026, and so on and so forth. So you have to sit down and figure out what those initiatives are that are going to be driving those factors. And even with the businesses that are receiving those double-digit increases on their benefits plan, most likely are on a fully insured platform, you got to listen to this, right? And so again, if you translate it to the benefits world instead of revenue, if you translate revenue for the premium increase, right? So your focus is to get the premium increase lower, okay? And by combating just that, it's the same thing with revenue. Some people fight and say we got to increase sales. They're focused on big elephant hunting sales, or add more staff so that you could maybe generate more sales. There's a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't fix the process. So when you look at benefits, right, what's causing the increase? That's what you got to look at, right? How do you reverse the trend? There's so many companies out there right now reversing the trend of healthcare. And so how do you do that? And how do you manage that, right? And how do you construct that, right? That's the process that you go through. Pharmacy is a big portion of that, right? And claims are another, but you have to break it all down. On a fully insured platform, you don't have control of that, right? But are you ready for that change? Is it bad enough for you, right? Or are you getting close to saying, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to lay off some people or close my doors and shutter my doors because I can't afford to pay for the premiums for my employees? And so it's about what goes in the process to handle the outcome of the premium increase, right? And the less data you have, the less opportunity you could do that. And this is where I think CFOs and business owners fail. They focus so much on sales and cost inside the company, manufacturing, what's going to cost the goods, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden they go to the health insurance and they totally forget about how they're doing it in the business. And they're just like focused on, we got to get the 12% down to 9% because it just has to happen. But they're already getting 9%, but they had no idea why or how other than trends and costs, but they don't actually disclose any of that. And so you have to focus on how to control those outcomes to control that increase, right? So you could have more predictable renewals. But it's not an overnight thing. So could be a 3 to 5 year outlook. So which means you have to work at it every single day. You have to work at it every single month, and you have to make this progress, right? And there's strategies behind that. So you can't change the end number without changing the strategy that's going into those numbers, whether it's driven on a benefits renewal or if it's driven off of revenue and increasing profits, right? You have to come up with the roadmap and just work on it, right? And so one day, you might make it to the pros, and in this case, when it comes to your business, controlling profits, controlling the growth of the company.